Hey guys, so it's 4:40 on Friday. How am I going to keep you interested? So there are no slides, nothing to read. So I'm new to this industry. I'm an ex-telco guy, and I got drawn in on the promise of the internetification of finance, and I loved listening earlier to what was said. And it was really interesting because this is about predicting the future, the securing the future, and that is a mug's game. So the example used open source 1, the internet played out. On Monday, 2 billion people went down on a centralized platform. We went from national oligopolies in telecoms, where you could only bring down about 60 million people at a time, to one central service that brought down 2 billion people when WhatsApp went down. It is very, very hard to predict how things will play out. I loved the thesis when I was early in telecoms that it was going to be massive decentralization, that many roses would bloom, that it would empower many people. It didn't necessarily work out that way. The economy, everything is much better, but it didn't play out that way. And so I'm very wary of saying this is how the future of money will be. But there are some things that I believe will be true regardless. One of those things, it's a natural thing that everything gets unbundled and it gets rebundled again. Fundamental needs will always remain. And one of those fundamental needs is trust. Trust is always needed. It's not going to go away. So what do Elliptic do? What am I selling? What does every point I make lead to? Why ultimately will it kind of build to a crescendo and say, use our products? Well, we're in the ledger intelligence space, the crypto risk space. Most of you will know us from an AML, compliance, counter-terrorist financing perspective. More simply, we can tell you, is it naughty? Is it nice? Should I be dealing with it? If I deal with it, will I get in trouble? Will I not get in trouble? And I'm aware, when I went to the pre-event drinks, that I'm sort of like either loved or hated, depending on your view. We are either, here to destroy the revolution, or we're here to enable the revolution. And virtually every graph I've seen today has had just a huge hockey stick going up, and to the right. And that makes perfect sense. And what does that take? To get that huge hockey stick, what does that take? You can't be on the periphery. You can't be dealing with people who deeply understand things. No, you've got to get into the mainstream. And the mainstream is where all of those rising to 20%, 30% of all capitalized assets, that is the mainstream. And that's where I would love to see this go, into the mainstream. And that's painful sometimes. I remember the first time I saw someone using a computer who didn't know how to access the command line, and it upset me. I was like, you shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be allowed to use that wonderful device without actually understanding how it works. But the way that it became mainstream was that it got completely away from that. And the same thing will be true of crypto. For it to go mainstream, it's going to have to engage mainstream assets, mainstream people. And a key part of that is going to be regulation. So the first thing I'd say is regulation is good, not bad. If you want to end up on the far right hand of that chart, with true mass adoption, regulation will be your friend. Okay? If you don't want to go truly mass market, if you want to stay in the periphery, I think there was a beautiful quote earlier, if you want to be on Coconut Island, fine. Go to Coconut Island, stay in the periphery. But if you want to become part of the mainstream, you've got to meet people halfway. You've got to meet people halfway. You've got to go from where it is now into the mainstream, and that requires regulation. Regulation is good, not bad. It is not against you. It will enable you to become truly mainstream. The next point I'd make is, don't leave it too late. I hear people saying, we're not regulated yet. We don't need to do something. And then at the same time, people complain about unenlightened regulation. You need to start acting in a prudent way that lets regulators look at you and think, you know what? I can leave them alone. Okay? If you're in the playground playing with knives, expect the teacher to come out and say, okay, we're banning knives. Okay, but don't go, oh, but we wouldn't have played with the knife. Sorry, you know, behave in the manner you would expect to build a sustainable business, and then show that to regulators. So when they come to see what needs to be done to make a market act in a way that can go mainstream, they see good behavior. Okay? So don't play to the edges and to the extremes and do nothing and then complain if someone comes in and does something too draconian. Engage with it. Before it becomes a tick box, make sure you're doing it for good commercial reasons. There are good commercial reasons to understand risk. Full stop. Make sure you fully understand the risk before somebody makes it a mandatory thing. The next thing that I'd say is, if regulation is good, and you should embrace risk management long before someone makes it mandatory, the last thing then is, use it to your commercial advantage. Compliance is a significant cost. It's a significant cost in traditional finance. It will be a significant cost in the future too. If you go with a solution that is just for a tick box, it will not be designed to optimize your operational costs. Get in bed with somebody, you'd never guess who I'd recommend, but get in bed with a solution that actually gives you a cost advantage, that actually gives you a brand advantage. Because going forward, when hyper profitability sort of comes down and things actually go into more mainstream, more competitive environments, making sure that you can manage compliance costs in a sustainable way will be differentiating. Making sure that you can actually offer an experience to consumers, to institutions, to anyone that is fast and efficient will make a huge difference. So just please make sure you do that. The number of people who I see who come to us very late in their commercial journey is like terrifying. It's quite scary how late in the chain it gets considered. It should be considered very, very early on. I'm saying that for the industry's benefit. Please do view regulation as a positive, embrace with it early, help inform the regulatory environment that you would like to have, and then if you're going to do it in a way that gives you a commercial advantage for the future. We can open up to questions, keep you awake for those of you who are still here. Let's go with questions and see if there's anything anyone would like to know. We lost our, he's gone to the toilet probably. Wasn't expecting it.
My mic, oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Thanks very much for turning me up. I really appreciate that. Any questions? Who's first? Oh, come on, surely we got...
Throw me a bone.
Yeah,
throw me a bone. Give me a question. Come on. A nice one, too.
Come on.
There you go.
Lady up the front. Hi. There you go. Thank you.
What's your view on on regulating decentralized finance? How can it be achieved without actually impeding the industry?
Yeah, so it's interesting in that ultimately making things safe, making things trustworthy, I think will be to the net benefit of the industry. Now you can move to a position where you don't facilitate that and try and stay away from it, or you can actively embrace it. When it comes to building any technology, you can decide to make it in such a way that it can actively embrace meeting societal needs or not. So it's perfectly within the gift of those who build technologies to either be friendly to society's needs or not friendly, or friendly to some aspects of society's needs versus others. So there's nothing inherently in DeFi that makes it outside the world of regulation. And when people come up and they build competing platforms and one is more compatible with going mainstream, the one that is more compatible with going mainstream will win. And that'll just be how it plays out. It's, like you can do whatever you want with technology. The question is whether you use that technology to lean into a regulatory framework, a legal framework, or a societal framework or not. So I think the schemes, and I'm fabulously excited by it. I mean, the centrifuge presentation, that's wonderfully exciting. Really, 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 really cool stuff.
Great conversation.
It can either be decided to go down that route or not, but it is doable. It's 100% doable. The question is, do they want to do it or don't they want to do it? And for me, that's down to, do you want to actually get to the far right-hand side of the graph, or do you want to slip back down towards the left?
Excellent. Any more questions for John?
One more.
Come on, what else have we got? What else have we got? Oh, here we go. Excellent, sir. Thank you.
So what about completely decentralized infrastructure with pseudonymous teams and completely evading regulation?
Yeah, you can set up a bank that doesn't do anything today using old technology. There's nothing inherent in the technology that is new to do that. That would just be a choice to do that. So you can do that, and they exist already today. Like, you already have, privacy coins that don't enable that. Sorry, or enable that. But that's not where the majority of the capital will go. And it's where the majority of the capital will go. It's where the majority of investors will go. The majority of people will go. If you have an ambition to change the world, if you want to engage the unbanked, if you want to engage the disenfranchised, if you want to take the trillions of money from people who are already wealthy and get them slightly better returns, you're going to build something that can embrace them. You can, of course, build something that doesn't embrace them. Now, there's a much more interesting thing than about legal liability. I used an example joking at drinks. I said, I could build a drone, put guns on top of it, and code it to shoot anything above 36 degrees Celsius. I'd call the software in a smart contract, and then I'd unleash it. Pretty quickly, somebody is going to figure out how to address that in some way, shape, or form. They're going to figure out who should be held liable for those actions. Society has open eyes. It will figure out a way to promote the good and to demote the bad. And those who are seeking capital will figure out a way to come up with schemes that promote the good and demote the bad. But from a technology perspective, you could do stuff ages ago, like Mondex. Most people here probably don't remember Mondex. True peer-to-peer digital cash, and you could transfer it without any central authority. That existed back in the 80s, The challenge is, how do you get something to be mass adopted? And that requires much more than technology. And I think that ability to embrace the mainstream is what will make that work.
Totally agree. I think that's it. John,
Cool.
Thanks so much for coming down and presenting.
Not at all. Thank you very much.
Really big fans of Elliptic and what you guys are doing here. So thank you very much. Big round of applause for John, please. Thank you.